Andrew Bustamante.
He's a former CIA intelligence officer.
So I'm 100 feet underground, 72 hours at a time, with a red buzzer going off every 40 minutes, waiting to end the world. I'm thinking in my head, this is some kind of scam, and I'm sitting across from some lady who's telling me I would be a good fit for CIA.
How in the hell do you keep your identity from being discovered when you're a CIA agent?
We have 3 different levels of disguise. They're just called level 1, level 2, level 3. 3 years ago, CIA reviewed the manuscript. The entire book was classified. So we threatened CIA with a First Amendment lawsuit. When you really want to influence and persuade someone, you have to get out of their private life and into their secret life. And we all have a secret life. It's where you know you aren't as successful as you want to be. You're a little bit abusive or a little bit manipulative or a little bit of a dick.
Sure.
Once you're in someone's secret life, this is the magic of it all.
Yeah.
You're never allowed to leave. Because at the core of all of our secret lives, we all know
All right, Andrew, the first question is...
why is there so much empty couch?
There's a little bit of empty couch. Maybe we should have everybody come up here. So
I know, right?
I gotta know, how does somebody get in the CIA?
So there's a lot of different ways to get into CIA. But at the end of the day, what it really boils down to is somebody has to see a need for what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, like War on Terror came around and all of a sudden there was a need for younger, dark-skinned, ethnically diverse men and women.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was Cold War era. What you need was middle-aged and older Caucasian Ivy League graduates. Whatever the next conflict is going to be, knock, knock, China, you're going to see that there's going to be a recruitment effort that goes in the direction of people who are ethnically diverse, that lean of an Asian ethnicity. CIA really doesn't look for special people. It looks for normal people that have character traits that can be made into
Let's
something
talk about
great.
those character traits. We were talking back there, because I was like, well, it's profiling, right? Because I'm assuming they're looking for a certain type of personality that they can maybe, that personality they can mold into what they want, that identity, but they're not looking for other identities. So how do they get like a field officer like you that's going to have a different identity or personality compared to the data analyst? Break that down for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So CIA is a big community of many different disciplines. You've got, we were just talking about, we've got cartographers that handle maps, analysts, linguists, you've got logisticians, you've got tech ops operators, you've got the people who build hidden boxes or hidden compartments in tables that sit in ambassadors' offices. Right. And then of course you have field operators who take secrets, field operators who do surveillance, field operators who are paramilitary. So you can start to see that there's many different types of skill sets.
Sure.
Every skill set has a profile that they recruit for. And then in each of those profiles, they're looking for many different traits. Paramilitary, you want people that have a high pain tolerance.
Right.
Linguists, you want somebody who can handle a great deal of workload. You like some are introverts, some are extroverts.
Okay.
But one of the things that everybody has to have is something that we call moral flexibility.
Tell us about that. What does that mean?
So moral flexibility, there's ethics and there's morals in life. Ethics are what some outside organization pushes upon you. The ethics of being a doctor, the ethics of being an attorney, the ethics of being a nurse, right? And you have to follow the ethical code that was put in place by outside
letter of
powers.
the law. There's no black and white.
Correct.
Okay.
But then you've got morals. Morals are what we impose on ourselves. And for the most part, we let our morals evolve over time, but not very much from what we're programmed or conditioned to believe when we're kids. So what CIA is really looking for in all of the profiles is somebody who's willing to take those morals, those internal guidelines, and break them, forget them, push them aside.
Bend them a little bit.
Because we have to be able to go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
You have to be able to do something that you might think is immoral in the best interest of the American people, and then come back to work the next day, truthfully report what happened, honestly report what happened, and then still kiss your kids goodnight.
It's a very unique person to do that. Now, you were in the Air Force. What happened? Like, did you just watch a bunch of James Bond's movies as a kid, or like somebody come approach you? Like, how does somebody go from the Air Force to get in the CIA and being a field officer?
Yeah. I mean, I was with the United States Air Force. I was an Air Force Academy graduate. I thought I was going to be like uniform, short hair, shiny shoes forever, but it just wasn't a good fit, and I could feel it very early on. Like, for anybody who's been military, you guys know what I'm talking about.
Did you have to cut your hair or something?
Oh yeah,
okay.
Regulations about your hair, regulations
Not
about your
work.
face. Yeah,
yeah.
It's just not going to work. And then you have people who are in charge of you, who haven't earned the right to be in charge of you. They haven't earned your respect. They just checked off a list that was on somebody else's list of somebody else's list, and it was ridiculous. So Air Force wasn't a great fit. I also ended up handling nuclear weapons with the Air Force.
Interesting.
So I'm 100 feet underground, 72 hours at a time, with a red buzzer going off every 40 minutes, waiting to end the world. And that was not my vibe.
That could be trouble.
So
where is that? Wyoming? Where's the?
I was in Montana, right?
Okay. Well, I did not know that.
You weren't far off. Yeah, you weren't far
Okay.
off. So you can imagine how great like the single life was. And
Probably not that good living down in a bunker that far deep with nuclear weapons in Montana. I can see it. Okay, so you get approached, or somebody approaches you like randomly?
Well, I decide I want to leave the Air Force. So I start going through the process to leave the Air Force. And you put in a lot of paperwork when it's time to resign. At the same time, I'm also applying for new government jobs. I'm looking at Department of State, I'm looking at Treasury, I'm looking at Homeland Security, whatever else. And I decided to look at the Peace Corps also, because in my mind, in the way that things make sense to a 27-year-old boy, I'm like, what's the farthest I can get from nuclear weapons
I can
underground
see you in the
Montana?
Peace Corps. Is it the hair?
Yeah.
The hair, maybe the Peace Corps? You can see that? Okay.
I was like, what's the farthest from that? And it's the Peace Corps. And then, of course, I start having these fantasies of like, oh, I'm going to save little Nigerian children. I'm going to create microfinance in sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay, sure.
And I'm going to meet like, beautiful women with hairy legs who just want to bang it out in the desert. Like that's what was motivating me.
Sure, yeah.
And in that process, a little screen pops up. As I'm applying for the Peace Corps, a screen pops up. And it says, we ask that you put your application on hold for 72 hours. We think that there are other opportunities for you in government that you might be interested in. So it's a little yes, no button. Yes, pause.
It just pops up on the computer in 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of what did computers look like then? Okay.
So they were desktop computers. They were about this deep, right?
Okay.
And then the only time you saw a blue screen was when something went wrong. Remember the blue screen of death?
Yeah.
So,
oh my God.
So this thing pops up and it's 2 buttons and I'm like, okay, yes, I'll pause my application and wait for something better to come along. I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
And then no shit, 24 hours later, I get a phone call from 703 area code.
Okay.
A woman on the other line that says, are you Andrew Bustamante? Were you applying for the Peace Corps?
Okay.
We think that we have an opportunity for you in Washington, D.C.
And she flies you there from Montana?
Yeah, no shit.
Interesting. And so did you really know what it was for?
No idea.
Okay.
She told me that it was a national security position and that if I was interested, they would overnight me a hotel reservation, a car rental reservation, and then instructions on where to go next.
Unlikely a 27-year-old man is going to turn that down.
Exactly. But it's also one of those things where I'm thinking in my head, this is some kind of fucking scam. All that I have to do is wait for this overnight not to show up. But then the overnight package did show up. And I went to the airport and I was like, this ticket's not going to work. And the ticket worked. And every step of the way, I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe it. And then before I know it,
curiosity, man.
Dude, I walk into this beige office in a beige building on a beige office building complex. And I'm sitting across from some lady who's telling me that I would be a good fit for CIA.
What, do they just read your profile randomly and then they reach out? Is that how
Because
they do that?
everything about me was already recorded because I was military.
Okay.
They knew my grades, they knew my health status, they knew my family background, they knew everything I had done wrong, everything I had done right. They knew me inside and out from my military record.
You fit the...
So all they needed was for me to say, yes, I'll start lying to my family. So that I can move on to the next round of interviews.
I love that. Okay, so you got this book, this new book, Shadow Cell, and you're talking, in the book, you talk about a real like covert mission with your spouse, which
Correct.
I understand she was in the CIA as well.
Yes.
That's now declassified. Obviously, you wrote the book. Tell us, I haven't read the book yet, so how did that happen with your spouse? Why did they let a husband and wife do that together? It's like Mr. and Miss Smith vibes, you know?
It is. It's funny.
You seen that show, Mr. and Miss Smith? Yeah.
So the book is Shadow Cell, and anybody listening to my voice right now, you don't want to miss this book because 3 years ago, CIA reviewed the manuscript and told us that the entire book was classified. From beginning to end, it's a classified document. It'll never be published. It'll never see the light of day. Now, my wife and I knew how hard we had worked to create a book that was more transparent than any CIA spy memoir ever, but also did not contain anything that would qualify as classified documentation.
Yeah.
So for 3 years, we've been wrestling with them. Since 2021, the manuscript has been done, but we've been fighting with CIA to get this thing released.
Okay.
It wasn't until last year that my wife finally got fed up with the kind of government bureaucracy way of doing things, and she engaged an attorney, and she found out that because of the story itself, we were entitled to a first right amendment that would allow us to publish the book with or without CIA's permission.
Interesting. Okay.
So we threatened CIA with a First Amendment lawsuit, and as soon as they reviewed the case, they were like, you can release the book.
It's not that big of a deal, yeah, once they saw
So
it.
the long story short there, to answer your question, I made it the short story long, I guess is what I actually did. But I met my wife on the first day of CIA.
Okay.
And then in the book, it kind of details how we got married, yes, we fell in love, yes, and all that stuff is there. But more importantly, we were called in to a very unique operation because CIA had identified a mole inside CIA.
Interesting. Okay.
So there was a double agent operating in the senior echelons of CIA.
Like in Langley or where?
In Langley.
Okay. Yeah.
And CIA didn't know who the person was. It was given to us by an ally. So we had no concept of who the mole was. And they needed to continue creating operations that somehow the mole couldn't have access to.
Okay.
So they asked my wife and I to start creating a whole new way of operating, separate by ourselves, completely separate from CIA, from Langley, because they thought that if we did that, those operations would be safe from the mole. The reason it's a First Amendment right is because at the same time, they knew that our operation would be bait for the mole.
So walk me back. So you guys meet and you kind of like just meet in the cafeteria, like you meet. I'm trying to imagine how CIA
That's really
agents
romantic,
meet.
right?
Is there like
line?
a Saturday night like ball night for CIA agents to mingle together? You know, how does that work? That could be interesting. But like you guys meet, you date for a while, like but separately. You're having these covert missions separately. Like how does that work? And then all of a sudden you get married, and now you're still doing missions separately, but nobody knows what you really do.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because to hear you say it, it sounds really interesting. But when I think about it, it just sounds kind of mundane. But yeah, we met because my wife and I were in the same onboarding class.
Okay.
At CIA, you onboard just like you do in any business.
Okay.
Here's your 401k. Here's how you take a day off.
Right,
and it's like 7 days long, 5 days long.
Yeah.
And we were in the same onboarding class. And she would always sit in the back, and I would always sit in the front. And I would walk past her every day. And every day I walked past her, she was dressed frumpy, sitting in the back row all by herself. So I just assumed she must be an instructor. Right?
Yeah.
She must be a career bureaucrat to look that pretty in the face and that busted in the outfit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You're like, well, what's going on? Yeah.
And then I would always go to the front because I'm like Mr. Go-Getter. I want to have success, right?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out my wife had an anxiety disorder that was just diagnosed. She was sitting in the back because every 15 to 20 minutes she had to go vomit.
Oh, geez.
Because the anxiety of the new job and the stress of the new job was physiologically affecting her.
Okay.
The reason that she was dressed down isn't because she wasn't cute. It's because she knew she was going to spill food or some other substance on herself.
Sure.
And she wanted an easy access, and she had 4 changes of clothes in the car. She was so dedicated to the career that even through that discomfort, she wasn't going to miss orientation.
Hey guys, Jeremy Miner here. A lot of you guys keep asking me really good questions in the comments on how to sell more. So the easiest way to actually get a hold of me is to actually text me way faster. So 480-418-6755. So text me at 480-418-6755, because here's the deal. I started this sales training company to help you finally master sales and persuasion once and for all, which is I know what you want to do. So text me and then let's get back to the show.
So you guys start dating. And
it's just like you said, we're taking missions separately. And we're dating when we're together. She's going to Latin America, I'm going to Africa, she's going to, Chile, I'm going to Portugal, and in between we're coming back and we're going on dates. And we find out that it's very hard to date outside of Langley because you can't talk about what you do.
Sure.
So then we started having dates at CIA headquarters. We would just go to the cafeteria.
Yeah.
We'd get Dunkin' Donuts and a Starbucks, and we'd sit there for 2 hours before work started and have our date together, where we could talk about.
So you had this whole cover story to anybody that knew you or you'd bump into about who you were. I don't know if you can talk to us about that. What caused you to write this book?
The story in the book is less about me and my wife. We're not the stars of our own story. If anything, I'm kind of the fuck up and she's the engineer. The story is really about the incredible men and women who built this operation with us. Shadow Cell, the title of the book, is literally a cell of operators that we created And it was successful because the people who were part of the cell did amazing things. Those are people you'll never meet. You'll never hear their story. CIA won't tell you about their story.
Yeah.
But there's such a perfect example of the men and women who do great work every day. Yes, there are assholes. Yes, there are people who
Are bad.
are bad.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of the men and women at CIA are hardworking, dedicated professionals, and they never get represented.
Yeah.
So it was important to my wife and I that we share that story in our book. That's what made us want to write it. We wrote it at this period in time because when the first Trump administration took over, there was this push for transparency.
Okay.
And we knew that the mole that we write about is a mole that CIA has never acknowledged. It's the first time ever that this mole is being publicly acknowledged by CIA in the release of our book.
Okay.
So that's a perfect example of the kind of transparency we wanted to
That you wanted out
share.
there. So, question. So, you've been trained, obviously, as a CIA agent. You're trained on this. What did you call it? The bending of morals, or what did you say? Bending of morality, or whatever. This framework. Give us maybe like one or two techniques that you learned, because you're talking about you're going to find this mole and somehow get this mole's guard down where they trust you enough to tell you the truth of what they're doing. That's really persuasion, influence, and sales. So maybe give us like one or two techniques you were taught on that work really effective to really get somebody to let their guard down and start to trust you.
So one of the first things that we're taught is that nobody is as they appear to be. Everybody in every culture, every age, every education level, they're all pretending.
That is so true.
They don't acknowledge that they're pretending, but they are pretending. So all people are made up of three lives. There's a public life, then there's a private life, and then there's a secret life. Your public life is the life that you present to the world.
That's your mask.
It's your mask, it's your hair, it's your clothes, it's your confidence, it's your worry, it's your favorite TV shows, it's the shit you talk about when you're not trying to talk about anything important. That's all public life, that's our safe haven, it's our space, it's our shell.
Sure.
We put that up so that we keep the wrong people out, and the right people we can keep at a distance until we deem them worthy of coming into our private life.
We keep our guard up. Right? Does that make sense? Everybody that's here, you're in sales, business, every prospect you talk to, they're going to have a mask. The guard is up. How do you get them to take that mask off, let the guard down? It's good.
The second life is called the private life. So once people get out of their public life, or they let you into their private life from their public life, that's where you start to see what people's vulnerabilities are, right? Your private life is like your family, your close family. They know that your feet stink. They know what your hair looks like when it's all messy. They know that, you get gas if you eat too much beef. They know secrets about you that your public life doesn't share.
Yeah.
But they still don't know your deepest secrets.
Yeah.
Right? So inside your private life, you have a small group of people, and there's power for the people in your private life. But when you really want to move someone, when you really want to influence and persuade someone, you have to get out of their private life and into their secret life. There's only a handful of people that we ever let into our secret life. Your secret life is where you are self-aware of your own biggest vulnerabilities. It's where you aren't as successful as you want to be, where you're a little bit abusive or a little bit manipulative or a little bit of a dick.
Sure.
It's where that you cheated on that girlfriend and nobody else knows. It's where that you sometimes think about cheating on your wife.
Sure.
All that happens in your secret life. And we all have a secret life.
Inner self.
So when you want to recruit a source and make them a highly productive, highly loyal source, you have to systematically go from their public life into their private life, into their secret life. Because once you're in someone's secret life, this is the magic of it all.
Yeah.
You're never allowed to leave.
Because there's that emotional connection.
Because it's so powerful. Even if you don't see them, to them, you're still one of their most closest confidants. 10 years go by, 20 years go by. It's the reason we almost all have that friend in college that, as I tell you this story, you're thinking of that friend.
Sure.
Where if they showed up tomorrow on your doorstep, it would be as if a day hasn't passed.
So how do you get that emotional connection where they willingly allow you to get into that inner self of themselves? Like, what are you saying? What are you asking? I mean, I know there's a lot that goes into that. It's not just one thing, but give us maybe an example of how that process works.
So we have a framework that we use. It's called Sensemaking. And Sensemaking is a 3-step framework that starts with avoidance.
Okay.
The first time you meet somebody, and even in their public life, they will try to avoid you. It's true for all of us. The first time I meet a stranger, I try to avoid them too. It's a natural survival instinct.
Yeah.
After you push through the avoidance step, you get into this step we call competition. And competition is an exchanging of ideas and opinions. And then after you get through competition, you get into compliance. You have to get through the sense-making process before you can be accepted into the secret life.
Okay.
So just as a quick kind of example, you meet a new person. That new person doesn't trust you. Of course they don't trust you. They don't know you.
Sure.
Whether you're trying to sell something or whether you just run into them on the street, they don't care.
The guard's up.
Their guard is up, and you are firmly in their public life.
Yeah.
Well, if you engage through that public life, if you engage through the avoidance, they try to avoid you, you don't avoid them. They continue to try to avoid you, you continue to engage. What's going to happen is they're going to realize that you see something in them that nobody else sees. And then they're going to feel interesting. They're going to feel good because you're around them.
Okay.
And then they'll engage you. And then when they engage you, you have this opportunity to what we call develop and assess them.
Okay.
They're going to tell you information. You're going to tell them information. And you're going to compete in the information the same way that a team that's on the same school competes for scrimmages.
Sure.
Right? It's not someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. It's an exchange of ideas and information to build a relationship.
So do you try to align your ideas with their ideas, or you take their ideas and you somehow align yours to not necessarily be perfect to theirs, but where it's somewhat similar, so they start to pull in, or what do you mean?
So that whole competition phase is really two steps. The first step is you mirror and reflect their values, their beliefs, even their physical behaviors.
Okay.
Because what you're trying to do is get them to express more of their opinions, express more of their ideas. Sure. Because once you have that information, once that cat's out of the bag, it can't go back in.
Okay.
Once they admit that they have doubts about this other person, they can't just later on say, oh, I made a mistake. I actually really trust that person.
You're
completely.
more putting the focus on them rather than you. So you're probably getting them to talk most of the time, and you're more listening and navigating.
Exactly. Your job is open-ended questions that have a natural flow to the topics they're bringing up.
Does that make sense to everybody, what he just said? Open-ended questions that have a natural flow, that don't sound scripted. Because if it sounds scripted, then the guard goes back up.
Guard goes back up.
Goes back up. See, it's sales. That's a big thing. Keep going. This is really good.
So you go through this first phase of mirroring and reflecting. And then when the body language starts to demonstrate that they are mirroring you, then you start to change your behaviors to get them to follow your lead.
You said something really brilliant here that most salespeople have never really heard. Most salespeople have been trained that you have to mirror the prospect. Did you hear what Andrew said? He's getting them to mirror him. Why is that so important, to not mirror everything the prospect does, but learn how to get the prospect to mirror what you're doing?
So the mirroring process is a tactical step. It's not a strategy, right? Strategies are long-term, tactics are short-term. You are mirroring and reflecting their values and their beliefs, not because you have them. You're mirroring and reflecting their body language, not because you feel the same way. You're doing it so that they see themselves in you. Yeah. And then once they see themselves in you, they project themselves onto you. And then they want to keep up with you. So you go from sitting forward like they're sitting forward to leaning back. And then if they lean back, that is an indicator that the power dynamic has shifted.
Yeah.
That now they are following you.
Yeah, so they're compliant to you now.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
And the final step is compliance. And what that compliance means, remember we started avoid, compete, comply. When they get to that compliance step, the stronger you have competed with them, the more information, data, and leverage you have to get them to comply in their best interest or even against their best interest. Yeah. Because they've essentially built a power dynamic where you are in the position of power. You are the one inside their secret life.
They view you, I don't want to say as they trust you. They view you as somebody they can trust, like that's maybe even authority or something that they trust, they can feel like they can tell more of their inner stuff to.
Correct. And trust is such a good word, and people misunderstand what trust is, right? Trust does not mean you're the mentor. Trust does not mean you're the big brother. Trust does not imply responsibility, right? You have to think of yourself like you think of a safety deposit box. It's a tool that you put something in, and then you walk away and you never think of it again, right? It's not a mentor. It's not a reference point. It's a tool that's there that you trust to be secure. If you can be somebody else's safe deposit box, then they never have to worry about you. And the only time you come to mind is with a comfort that their stuff is safe.
Yeah, and you can tell them things that you can't tell anybody else, because I'm assuming these other people you're trying to get these secrets from, like human nature says that we kind of want to tell somebody these secrets, right?
Right.
Biologically, that we don't want to hold them for the rest of our lives, I'm assuming.
There's a survival instinct that inclines us to share secrets with our own tribe, because our tribe is supposed to protect us.
Yeah.
So we feel like we have to share our secrets with the people who are responsible for protecting us. So it makes it so that, like, this is why criminals can't keep their crime secret.
Right.
It's why adulterers can't keep their crime secret. It's why people who embezzle money can't keep this crime secret. It's because they feel like they have to share it because somebody else has to help offset the risk of discovery or the loss of survival.
And they want justification. They want
validation.
They want validation, 100%. So let's go into tonality. This is important for persuasion influence. You know, whether you're in sales, business, you know, whether you're a CIA agent listening to this. So what's the most important? So when you're reading somebody, is it more important the words they say or how they say those words?
It's a great question, because the words that somebody is saying are carefully crafted. They have put effort into their words, but they're not putting any effort into their nonverbal cues.
Yeah.
And nonverbal cues are anything other than words. Yeah. So the pace that someone is speaking is a nonverbal cue. Yeah. The volume that someone is speaking is a nonverbal cue. Yeah. Their ums, their ers, when you see them processing through an idea, that is a nonverbal cue. So the words themselves,
that's their physiology,
are the last thing you can trust. Yeah. You have to look at the body language. You have to look at the tonality, the tempo, the pacing. That's going to tell you whether they're comfortable, whether they're being truthful, whether they're actually transparent. That's going to tell you if they're uncomfortable, because you're crossing from their public life into their private life. Yeah. It's going to tell you when to push harder. It's going to tell you when to sit in that tension and let them get comfortable with the tension before you move forward. It's everything.
Your tonality, that's how the brain interprets the meaning behind what you're saying. That makes sense. So your prospects are interpreting your words, your questions, not by the words, but how you say those words. So that's what I always say, like, why do salespeople selling the same thing to the same prospects at the same price points using the same script, how do they get completely different results? It's not the words, it's how they say those words. It's the tone, it's the body language.
It's the same reason that we like certain motivational speakers and we don't like other motivational speakers. Even though they're all talking about the same thing, some of them use dramatic language and pauses, and they bring us to the edge of our seat with excitement. Others just tell you the facts and nothing but the facts, ma'am. Yeah. And it's just a completely different experience, right?
Even though they're saying the same thing.
Even though they're saying the same thing. Yeah. Even though they're all talking about mindset and they're all talking about morning routines.
What about, how does the body language affect the tone when you're reading somebody? Like, to see if they're telling you the truth, what are you looking for?
So there's this idea out there that micro expressions are the key to determining if someone's telling you the truth. And what the truth is that at CIA, we don't rely on micro expressions.
Define micro expressions for everybody here.
So micro expressions are when you look at blink rate, or when you look at someone sucking on their teeth, or when you see like forehead wrinkles or eye twitches or blink, different tiny changes in the face especially.
Sure.
The only time microexpressions are reliable is when you're in an interrogation setting where you control the environment. Because they can't leave. You control the environment, so they can't go anywhere. Yeah. But as soon as you're in a position where the environment is conducive to them leaving, you can't trust microexpressions.
Yeah, because if you're on a Zoom call, they can just click, gone.
If you're sitting in an office, they can just stand up and walk away. Yeah. So when you don't have the control of the environment, you have to rely on what we call baseline. Baseline is how you identify whether or not a person is having a large deviation from normal or whether they're in a small deviation from normal.
What do you mean by that?
So people who walk in, let's just say they're walking into a car dealership, right? Okay. When we walk into a car dealership, we're primed for a certain number of things. We know whether or not we are interested, how interested we are. We know how much time we have. We already know whether we hate buying cars or we love buying cars or something in between. So we have a baseline when we walk in. Yeah. A good salesman will see this person has a baseline. They won't start jumping into, sales conversation, and they won't try to make you buy a car in 20
Welcome to the
minutes.
store today. How can I help you?
Yeah, exactly.
Just looking.
That's bingo.
Yeah.
What a good salesman is going to do is going to see this person is somewhere. They have a mental frame right now, but I don't know what it is. I have to learn their mental frame by observing their baseline.
Yeah.
Maybe you do that by letting them walk around for 5 minutes. Maybe you walk up to them and you have a conversation about something other than buying a car. And that's going to give you a chance to hear how fast they're speaking. Are they jittery? Are they caffeinated?
Yeah, because if they're jittery or talking fast, that implies that their nervous system is reacting, and they're nervous probably because they feel like you're going to sell them something. So how do you calm their nervous system? How do you disarm them?
Right. And you won't even know unless you take a baseline. Maybe they're just a nervous person, right? Maybe they're an introvert and they are already terrified just to be out in public.
Sure.
You have no idea. So you've got to get a baseline of 20 minutes or so to see what is normal. And then once you know what normal is, you can understand how your inputs increase or decrease or don't impact what their normal is.
Okay.
That's how you can start to ferret out whether somebody is a compliant buyer or whether somebody is a resistant buyer or whether somebody just hates salespeople right out of the gates.
Sure.
Or maybe somebody's came from a sales family and they're here to test you. You don't really ever know until you get a baseline.
Yeah, and in a sales situation, human brain recognizes patterns. What pattern are they used to anytime they come into a retail store? What pattern?
Yep.
The question, welcome to the store today, how can I help you? That's a pattern they recognize, right? Because they've heard that since they were kids. And so immediately they get a knee-jerk reaction.
Yep.
Oh, just looking.
And they
Even
know
though
it's
they're
ingenuine, and it's an ingenuine question.
Yeah, exactly. They know it's like showing up on a sales call, like, how's your day going? They know you're generally not interested in how your day's going. So instantly the trust goes down in you because they know you're trying to build rapport.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of people believe building rapport is asking those type of surface level questions. Why is it not?
Rapport, it's
Like
funny.
trust building.
Yes, CIA uses the word rapport.
Okay.
And we use rapport specifically to explain a positive interaction with another person. That's what rapport is. It's not just an interaction. It's not a neutral interaction. It's a positive interaction. So it actually takes effort to build rapport. And the whole reason that you build rapport is because from that rapport, you are gaining something that we call social capital. Social capital is just like real money, just like real capital, only it's used in social situations. So imagine you go to work and you get a paycheck and then you put that paycheck in your bank. You go to have a meeting with somebody, you build rapport and you put that social capital in the bank. And you start building up this social capital because at some point in time you have to spend the rapport, the capital that you've built. You have to ask them a hard question.
Sure.
You have to make them uncomfortable. You have to put some pressure on them to get them to move off of the X that they're on.
Yeah.
That's called spending your social capital.
Okay.
The thing is, as long as you have more capital in the bank and you're never outspent, they have essentially a social obligation to stay in place. They can't leave.
They comply.
They comply.
That makes sense. Okay. So I want to go, I heard you talk about this on a couple podcasts. You talk a lot about perception versus perspective. What does that mean for everybody watching, listening to us?
So all human beings live in a world of their own perception. We are the star of our show, right? Everything happening is happening to you. Where you came from, where you're going, what you're thinking about, whether you're hungry, whether you have to go to the bathroom, you're the star of the show. It's your perception of the world around you. Well, guess what? The world is much bigger than you.
Yeah.
And when it comes to a social interaction with another person, guess what they're also doing from wherever they're sitting? Living in their own perception.
World, yeah.
Right? Where they're coming from, where they're going to, how their gut feels, right? They're worried about whether or not you can smell their bad breath.
Yeah.
We all live in our own perception. Well, the problem is if we live in our own perception, at all points we're competing with each other instead of finding commonalities. Because my perception is right, your perception is wrong. My perception is better, your perception is worse. And we're all thinking that all the time. Perspective means that you stop focusing on the subjective beliefs of your experience, and you start trying to observe the objective realities of your target.
So you're putting yourself in their shoes. How do they think?
And you're not putting yourself in their shoes with assumptions. You're putting yourself in their shoes by looking for objective, measurable facts, right? That person looks like they're about 6'3". What must their knees feel like? If they're 55 and 6'3", it feels very different on their body than me being 45 and 5'11", right? They're carrying extra weight. What must that feel like? I can see that they smell like coffee. They must have had coffee this morning. Are they crashing right now? Are they buzzing right now? Are they, right? Whatever. You can
You're
start
almost trying to emotionally connect before you talk to them, possibly, or while you're talking to them. You're putting yourself in their shoes, but you're genuinely trying to understand their inner self, really.
Yeah, you're trying to understand their experience because when they start to share information with you, it's just information unless you can put it into a frame that is their experience. Somebody who says I was up at 4 a.m. who's super fit, that means something different than somebody who's up at 4 a.m. and they're 60 pounds overweight. You can start to imagine how different the experience must be. So you can actually frame it and understand it better, which allows you to ask a better follow-up question. It allows you to create a better personal connection.
It puts you in an emotional state. Like, it puts you in an emotional state to be able to connect with them. That's the number one way to influence, is to master the emotional connection where that other human being, whether you're in the CIA or in sales or whatever, feels like you understand them, their needs, their desires, their wants, even their fears, and do that without judging them.
And the magic is they're not doing it to you. Because they've never heard this conversation. They've never gone through the practice. So every time you try to objectively perceive somebody else's existence, it makes them subconsciously feel good. It makes them feel interesting. It makes them feel relevant. It makes them feel heard. It makes them feel seen.
So what's releasing in their brain? We're talking about that's releasing dopamine. What are they releasing there? Because there's a chemical that's being released in their brain that's causing them to feel these feelings.
Correct. Yeah, all those feel-good chemicals. So they're getting their dopamine fix. You're actively,
that's going to let their guard down because it calms their nervous system.
Actively reducing their cortisol levels, which is also further reducing their resistance. You're building this almost like a external reliance on what your actions are to feed their good feeling. And you want that because at the end of the day, or at the end of the conversation, you're going to walk away. And when you walk away, you want to take their dopamine hit with you. So then when they go wherever they're going, they can't help but wonder, like, when am I going to see that guy again? When are we going to have another good conversation again?
It's even if in the dating world as well, like you leave and they don't know if you necessarily like them, don't like them. It's kind of a mystery. And that's why it causes so much curiosity, where they want more of that. 100%.
Right. We talk about persuasion and influence, and the lay world kind of talks about them as if they're the same thing, but they're not the same thing.
Yeah. What is the difference?
At CIA, we define persuasion and influence as two different elements of the same outcome. Persuasion is only what happens when you're physically with a person.
Okay.
Right? Physically with them in real time, physically with them on a webinar, physically with them on the phone.
You're either persuading them or you're getting them to persuade themselves. That makes sense.
Because you have to be engaging them in real time. Because persuasion is intrinsically tied to emotions. And you can only really observe, trigger, and trip emotions in real time. So when somebody's with you, your only option is persuasion. When you are out of the picture and they're thinking about what you said, you're influencing them.
So that's like Steve Jobs. Everybody still loves Steve Jobs. He's a legend because he influenced. He's not even here, but you still think about him because of the influence. Or like Tom Brady's not really playing football anymore, but he still influences your, like, wow, he's the greatest of all time because of the influence.
Exactly. And that influence is really powerful because it has a long tail, and you are literally amplifying the success of your persuasive moments during that long tail of influence. So you talk to someone on Monday, you don't talk to them on Tuesday. If you were good at persuading them on Monday, the emotions that you triggered are coming back up again on Tuesday. And then you talk to them on Wednesday. And from their perspective, you've been part of their life for 3 days. But in reality, you've been part of their life for 2 hours.
It's just the influence. Does that make sense? So anybody ever, you're in a type of sales situation, you could be selling to even a consumer, you could be selling to a business, and you have this first call, discovery call, whatever, then you have to book this second call. Well, why do a lot of those people not show up to that second call? Because you haven't mastered it, how to influence them, where they're thinking about that conversation all the way up to that call. Why do like top salespeople get most people to show up? Because of the influence. So what he's saying here is they're still thinking about that conversation 2, 3, 4 days later because you've influenced them. You guys getting this? Yeah, good stuff. Here, good. This is, we geek. Isn't this fun for you guys, psychology people? I love salespeople. All right, so we talk a lot about human beings make decisions emotionally. That's in our limbic system, emotional part of your brain, reacts before the neocortex that justifies that. How do you get them to stay in that emotional side of their brain so you can kind of control that emotional state so they don't really go over to that logical side where they try to start to analyze everything?
We have a tool at CIA that we call feeling questions. Mm-hmm. Feeling questions are literally questions that include an element of emotions. Mm-hmm. How did you feel when? Yeah. Take me back to the day that. Mm-hmm. What do you remember about whatever this thing is, right? Mm-hmm. You're trying to get the target to use their own words, their own vocabulary that is tied to their emotions. You want them to say things like, I felt frustrated, I felt happy, I was good, I was bad. You want to see physical and nonverbal cues that are signs of emotion. You want to see furrowed eyebrows, you want to see clenched teeth, you want to see sucked lips.
Because now you can tell they bought into that emotion.
And now you know that
if they're just straight faced, they're just telling you surface level stuff.
Exactly. And you know that you're in the emotional brain. It really is like a light switch because the emotional brain always works faster than the rational brain. Yeah. Right? Your right brain is way faster than your left brain.
So survival part of the brain. You're reacting. I hear a tiger in the woods.
It's sympathetic. Exactly. So once you get them, once you have the first tripwire, everything after that, they're going to stay there. The only way they get out of there is if you slow down or you stop or you pause or you break momentum enough that their rational brain can catch up and then they come back into their rational thought process.
That's so true.
So you have to get them there, keep them there, and look for those verbal and nonverbal cues that they're talking and thinking emotionally.
Are you guys trained tonality and how to influence by tonality?
Absolutely.
What do you train with that? It's a big thing that we do.
Yeah. So when it comes to the tones that you're using in your speech, you've got to understand that the way you say something, how you say something is oftentimes more powerful than what you say.
Sure.
So if you raise your voice, if you speed up, if you use complex words or if you use simple words, right? The tone that you take in the conversation is going to trigger some kind of emotional response. It might be defensive, it might be sadness, it might be anger, it might be joy, right? But the tone that you deliver is a primer for the emotion you want them to demonstrate. So if you want someone to get frustrated, you're going to talk in a frustrated way. You're going to use your tonality.
Tripping that emotion.
Because you know it's going to instigate them on the right side of their brain to show the emotion you want them to show. And likewise, if you want them to feel really reflective and sympathetic and sad, you're going to talk in a certain way.
More concerned tone that shows empathy.
That invites
what actually
them
happened?
to feel the same way.
Yeah, I love that. Everybody picking up what he's putting down there? I love that. Okay, so what are your thoughts about the way politicians communicate? We were talking about a little bit about that. What are your thoughts about how they communicate?
Somehow politicians have not learned anything from the business world.
Right, yeah.
because there's, I think you said it great backstage, right? If a politician could learn how to speak like a salesperson, they wouldn't win by margins of 2 or 3%. They'd win by margins of 20%.
If they knew how to, if they knew how to influence. I think most salespeople, unless they've been trained, most salespeople have not really been trained the right way. Most salespeople, I believe, kind of actually communicate like most politicians. That's why they don't make a lot of sales. But the very best, get the guard down, open them up, influence, right? Politicians just don't really go through much of that training. Maybe the CIA should do that a little bit. I don't know.
I mean, it would be great if the two could actually collide, but we'll see. The two different branches of government.
Collide? Okay, so I got to ask this. I know everybody's asking, how in the hell do you keep your identity from being discovered when you're a CIA agent?
There's lots of different ways. So a big part of it is that when you operate, you look differently than when you live day to day.
Okay.
So we have 3 different levels of disguise. And they're just called level 1, level 2, level 3. Okay. Level 1 disguise is anything that is basically disposable. A hat, sunglasses, a jacket, right? Okay. Just something that breaks up what we call a profile. So now, if you normally dress in fitted athletic clothes, and then tomorrow you wear some, secondhand suit from a thrift store, you've changed your profile. That's going to make it so that the vast majority of people who see you are going to ignore you because you're not fitting the profile of what you normally
They
fit.
don't recognize the pattern.
It's why you see so many celebrities wearing ball caps and sunglasses because they're trying to break up their profile.
Yeah.
That's level 1 disguise. Very easy to do. Level 2 disguise is when you make a long-term change to your appearance. So I'm donating all of my hair in December.
Okay.
That's going to be a huge long-term change. That creates an opportunity for me to be in level 2 disguise. So now if I get rid of my hair and I change my outfit and I start wearing a ball cap, even the people who know me well might walk right past me in the airport.
So that's level 2. What's level 3?
Level 3 is what you start seeing in the movies.
Like
that's
the
pull away
face.
faces. That's prosthetics. In our world, we call level 3 prosthetics.
So how does it work? Like if you're living in Northern Virginia and let's say your neighbors think that you're an accountant down at the local CPA firm, but you're really like flying over to missions in Afghanistan and secret of the night. Do you just go over as what you look like now because maybe nobody recognizes you in Afghanistan, or are you like really going in a disguise?
So this is great. This is actually one of the transparent Tradecraft tools that we talk about in Shadow Cell. That's never been shared before, right? When you operate, you use something called a cleansing route. So if you're an accountant in Virginia, your passport, your ID, they might even be your real name, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Before you operate in Afghanistan, you're actually going to travel to Nigeria. And then in Nigeria, you're going to don a disguise. You're going to swap out passports. You're going to get your hands on cash that didn't exist in the United States.
Yeah.
And then you're going to fly into Afghanistan from Nigeria in your new identity.
Okay.
And the reason you do that is so that anybody who becomes suspicious of you in Afghanistan, they're going to look up your flight protocols, they're going to look up your passport, and they're going to find you are in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And they have no way of getting information from Nigeria, let alone realizing that you're actually from Virginia.
So what do you do? Like if your cover is you're a CPA, like do you drive into a CPA office every day in case somebody's watching, or how does? I mean, I've seen a lot of spy shows. I'm just trying to put all this together.
It depends on the level of your cover.
Okay.
So if you're under a deep cover, then you might actually have a shell company set up that is its own office, and that office has what's known as a SCIF, Special Compartmented Information Facility, a SCIF inside it that directly is tied to Langley, CIA headquarters. So you go into your signal blocked SCIF and you do your work with Langley, even though you're living in an outbuilding that's
Would there be other CIA agents that are acting as office workers for the same company, but they're really working for the CIA too? I got to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, well, they're not going to act as office workers. They're going to act as whatever, because one shell company might have 3 officers that are all covered by that shell company.
Okay,
right?
I see.
But it's just companies of companies of companies. And at the end of the day, all the funding comes from the black budget of CIA. So it's all scrubbed, washed, and laundered.
I mean, here's my worldview. I'm watching Jason Bourne. I'm watching James Bond. I'm watching Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So this is where I'm kind of gleaning this information. So correct me if I'm wrong. What's one lesson that you've learned about human behavior in the CIA that most people would have no clue?
That most people would have
like something you learned about humans
Yeah.
and the way we behave that most people just would have no clue.
So I think that I'm going to tell you what I think is the most powerful, and I don't think that people are clueless to it. Human beings are predictably selfish.
Okay.
Like they are painfully selfish. And it doesn't matter how selfless they try to pretend to be.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how kind and caring they pretend to be. At the end of the day, they are extremely selfish.
Agreed.
And when you take away all of the excess that they have, their comforts, their protections, their predictable lifestyles, when you take all that away, you really start to unlock that selfish, kind of evil, self-interested person. And it's in part because we are all driven by this evil, vindictive survival instinct. That is the reason that so much of life is conflict.
So let's say that somebody, this is really good. Let's say that somebody is known as somebody that always donates their time to community shelters. Like they are just, the world thinks they're the most selfless person. They're actually not, because they actually have a fear of something that drives them to do that so they can be seen a certain way.
Exactly.
Describe
right.
that.
Think about how much effort has to go into crafting the consistency of that persona. right? How much effort has to go into every disrespect? How much effort has to go into every firm no? How much effort goes into all of the lack of support, right? So that selfless person has to put an incredible amount of resources into not showing that they are actually frustrated when you don't support them, and angry when you don't donate, and self-centered about wanting more recognition for the cause that they're fighting for. Right? This is how people truly are. So when you know that, you can cut down into their secret life faster, because at the core of all of our secret lives, we all know we're the asshole.
Yeah.
We're selfish and self-motivated.
That person might have a fear of significance, and so that's why they do that, because it makes them feel significant. You might have, if you have a fear of significance, it might be like you want to become wealthy so people see you as significant. Or you might, like, if you don't care about wealth, you have a fear of significance, you might want to donate all your time to shelters. That is solving that fear, or getting you away from that fear of significance, whatever it is.
Making an impact, making a difference, having a cause, right? It's all derivations of the same core calculus.
Now, how does that help us with persuasion and influence, understanding those emotional needs?
So there's a concept called the wheel of emotions. And if you've never looked it up, you can look it up on Google. The wheel of emotions is a fantastic tool.
Go to ChatGPT. There we go, baby.
Wheel of emotions, ChatGPT. And what you'll see is that at the core of all human psyche, for a neurotypical brain, right? For a neurotypical brain, a healthy brain, there's really only 3 or 4 core emotions: happiness, anger, sadness, and then for some people it's disgust. For some people it's doubt or fear, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
Of those core emotions, when you look at the bell curve of human existence, the vast majority of the bell curve are either angry, fearful, or disgusted at their core. That means that is the motivation that drives us. That is the emotion that we feel the most in a day. It's what keeps us alive. We are kept alive by our anger, or kept alive by our fear, or kept alive by our doubt and distrust for the people around us, right?
True.
That's what drives us to live every day. But we've been trained and socialized and conditioned that that's not acceptable. That's not socially acceptable. So we're layering coping mechanisms on top of it. We're hiding it. And then when we're all 40, we go to therapists who say that you're supposed to feel your feelings, right? But the reality is that's how all people are wired all over the world. So the faster you can basically identify someone's core emotion, and you can identify their core motivation, which we haven't quite talked about, but when you can identify a core motivation and a core emotion, they're going to feel like you understand them, and then boom, you're on the highway to the secret life.
Does that make sense? I want to break this down for you. So let's say if you sold fitness or anything like that that helps people get in shape, and you're talking to an individual and you ask them why they're looking to get in shape or whatever, and they say, oh man, I just got to get in shape because I want to look good in a bikini this summer. What's their fear? Because that's not why they're doing that. Their fear is what? That they're going to be judged. Their fear is they're afraid that somebody's going to view them in a negative way because their body doesn't look good. But they're not necessarily going to tell you that in the beginning. That's what he's saying. Does that make sense? Okay. So you got to understand, like, even if somebody says, I'm looking for this because of this, and they say pleasure, you got to understand how to open up what they fear. Okay. There's a big difference
and
there.
And it's really powerful.
Go ahead.
When you chat GPT the emotion wheel, the reason this tool is so excellent is because it will tell you the vocabulary words that align with each of those core emotions. So fear is not a word that anyone's going to use, but they will use words like doubt or lack of confidence. I'm concerned. I'm a little worried. I'm stressed. They'll use those words, and you have to understand that those are monikers that mean fear. And then likewise, you have to use the words, because you can't use fear. If you use fear, they're going to push back and say, that's not me. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of being judged. No. I'm comfortable with who I am. You're like, no, you're not comfortable with where you are. That's why you're fucking here right now.
That's why you're here. Yeah, exactly. 100%. Everybody getting this? This is really this is deeper stuff. Okay, so let's talk about AI. What limits should there be on AI when it comes to surveillance and warfare, or do you believe there should be limits?
So this is a really great question, because there is a dichotomy in all of us.
Mm-hmm.
The dichotomy is that we want to be able to keep our own secrets,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't want anybody else to be able to keep secrets from us.
Right.
And that's how we all feel as parents, as spouses, as kids.
Yeah, you want your kids to tell you their secrets, but you're not willing to tell you yours.
Exactly right.
That's
You want
so
your
true.
wife to tell you her secrets, but you don't want to tell her your secrets.
Exactly.
Right? It's a dichotomy that exists all the time.
Yeah.
It's the same way with AI and the surveillance state.
Mm-hmm.
We want AI and surveillance to track everyone else and
Mm-hmm.
keep me safe.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want AI and surveillance to track me
Yeah.
when I cheat on my taxes or,
Whatever.
go to the casino
Yeah.
with my paycheck. So we have a dichotomy.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the government views this, and it's important to understand that, the way that the government views it is that it is a massive efficiency to implement surveillance that's powered by AI. Because now you can essentially tell the AI to stay within the confines of the law, and it will perform better than a human law enforcement officer who might overstep their own boundaries. But we don't like the idea of an AI surveillance state.
Yeah. And that's why everybody's like, oh, AI is going to replace salespeople. It will for like lower ticket stuff, scheduling appointments, stuff like that. But there's this big thing, this big gorilla in the room called the FTC. And eventually when grandma gets sold something expensive over the phone and the son comes in, why did you spend $10,000? AI scammed you, and they called the attorney general. There's going to start to be some regulation on it. So when AI calls, I'm sure there's going to be regulations just like this call is recorded for quality and assurance purposes. Now it's going to say, hey, this is AI. Would you like to continue the conversation or talk to a live representative?
Yeah.
And eventually, what are most people going to do? I'll take the live representative because they're going to feel like AI can actually manipulate them more than a real life human. You guys see that? Yeah,
And what's
definitely a
wild
regulation.
is that we might actually see AI that is more capable of manipulating than a real life human. And again, it's going to serve in our best interest because when somebody has to choose between sitting on the phone for 2 hours or taking an AI bot after 10 minutes, they're eventually going to take the AI bot if the problem is big enough and the need is deep enough, and then the AI bot's going to make the same.
Yeah, and lower ticket stuff, 100%. All right, so I got some rapid fire questions, but first, who really killed JFK?
I would love to know myself.
Has anybody ever asked you a question like that just because they thought you're in the CIA?
People-
You're like, actually, I've read the papers. It's classified though, but it's not all. Some of it's been released, but it's really classified. What do you say? Just laugh.
I mean, I laugh and I basically try not to make them feel bad because
Yeah.
even if I knew that answer, I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. All right, so rapid fire questions. Rapid fire. The biggest red flag in somebody's body language is
When they touch their face.
why?
When they touch their face, that's a sign of vulnerability. It means they feel threatened. So if you're trying to take power, it's a good thing. If you're not trying to take power, this is how you know you're losing them. You need people's hands off their face.
Interesting. That's really good. Okay, what's the first thing you notice about someone when they walk into a room?
Where they sit.
Why?
Because people tell you a lot about their attitude and their social comfort by where they sit. Front and center, like the guy here dressed in the vest, like he came here with confidence. He may not be a confident person, but he walked in and he took that seat intentionally, right? Meanwhile, you've got people in the back. Some of them are in the back because they came late. Some of them are in the back because they wanted to stay away. Some of them are doubting whether or not we're going to try to sell them something.
Interesting. Yeah, the guard's up. Is selling something you do to people or selling something you do for people?
In reality, you're selling to help. If you believe in what your product is, you almost have a moral obligation to
like
sell that product.
Smart
If
man.
you don't believe in your product,
Yeah,
then they're not going to believe in your product either.
I agree. What did you pick up on me when we started talking in that room?
That you were in front of your daughters.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
was
the
I
first
doing?
place I met you today was actually in the bathroom.
Yeah, I remember. What'd you pick up in the bathroom?
That you were putting yourself together. You were putting on something that was going to smell good. You were making
Yeah.
sure you looked right in the mirror. You were
That's right.
checking up on me by making sure that you saw one of my more popular podcast episodes. And I interrupted your routine.
Yeah.
And I was very aware, like I'm interrupting his routine. It's not what
Yeah.
I want to do to anybody.
Yeah.
But I ended up doing it to you. And then we rolled through it. We rolled through the awkward conversation while I'm peeing in the urinal and we're still
Yeah.
talking about stuff, right? So it's this very awkward moment, but right away what it did is it connected you and I as like, hey, we're
Yeah.
both dudes and we both know that this is how it looks sometimes.
Yeah.
But then when we came in here, you had your two daughters there and your daughters are beautiful and your daughters are successful and your daughters are here
Thank
to
you.
support their dad. dad.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of still be dad.
Yeah.
So your posture was perfect. Your positioning was perfect. You kept your daughters included in the conversation all the time.
Hey.
Right?
Okay. All right. I like this. See, talk to CIA agents more. What's one thing most people would never guess about you?
That I took my wife's last name.
Tell us about that.
When I got
Yeah.
married, I came from a series of broken families.
Okay.
So my native name was not important to me. I just carried it with me everywhere. I even had a different name than my half sisters, right?
Okay.
So when I met my wife and I fell in love with my wife was the second daughter of a Latin man in a Latin family who had no sons, and he was the last boy in the family.
Okay.
So if my wife would have taken my name, it would have meant the end of her family line.
Yeah.
When I met my father-in-law, and he was more of a father to me than my own dad, and I fell in love with my wife, and I saw how much she loved her dad and their culture, I was like, you know what? Let me take your last name. And then if we have a son, the name lives on.
See how selfish he is? I love that.
Because I wanted to get laid.
I like that. I like that. Okay, so I got rapid fire. What's the most spy-like thing you still catch yourself doing in everyday life? It's the most spy-like thing you just catch yourself doing.
Yeah, so I will ask open-ended questions of everybody all the time just to not have them talk to me. So I don't ever like to be the one who's talking. I do these podcast episodes, and this is like the most you're ever going to see me talk.
Yeah.
Because when I'm with somebody, I'm asking questions.
So you purposely like ask a closed-ended question so it shuts down the conversation.
I ask an open-ended question
Okay.
because I want to learn as much as I can learn. And whether you're asking closed-ended or open-ended questions, you want the other person to learn as little about you as possible. So you want conversation to last as long as you choose to let it last.
Yeah.
So one open-ended question can put them on a diatribe, and after 4 minutes, you're like, great talking, I got to go.
Yeah.
And
So
you're
true.
done.
100%. Okay, so after everything you've learned in the CIA and government, what spy tactic gives entrepreneurs an edge?
You have to divide your audience. You have to.
Tell us what that means.
Yeah. That's what means.
What that means, divide the audience. What does that
So
mean?
dividing the audience means you have to create an artificial divide that forces them to identify as one thing or the other thing.
Okay.
You're doing that because you either want them to recognize that they're insufficient and they need to move to the other side, and simultaneously you're also representing what you are. So then if the prospect wants to be like you, they either have to change or they have to follow you.
Okay.
And if they don't want to be like you, then they're never going to make a sale anyway. So get them the hell out of the way so you can focus your resources on the people who do want to be like you.
Yeah.
So you have to constantly be dividing an audience and subdividing an audience. And it's rudimentary because when you start getting into more advanced tactics, you want to mature and evolve people. You want to grow them and
you
nurture
want to build
them.
them into we talked about this. You build, like if you're a marketer, your ads are taking this person and building them into the identity of the person who actually either buys something from that ad or responds to that ad or starts to think a certain way about that brand. Just like you're a salesperson, you can take a person and build them into the identity of the person who becomes that buyer.
Correct. But first, the first thing you want to do is divide because you don't want to waste your resources on non-convertible targets.
Sure. Okay, good. I like that. How can everybody learn about you? Where can they go? You've got this company, EverydaySpy. What is EverydaySpy?
Yeah,
talk about it.
EverydaySpy is on a mission to bring spy education to break barriers for anyone willing to learn.
Okay.
So we have courses that we teach online. We have communities. We have memberships. We have live events. We have training courses. We are all over the world. So if you want to connect with EverydaySpy, the best way to do it is go to everydayspy.com.
Okay.
And from there, you'll be able to start taking our free quizzes and consume our free library and learn everything that we're talking about here at a higher level.
We'll put those in the show notes. Show me which courses I should buy. I'm a student for life. I know nothing, right? That's the way it should be. I know nothing. I will buy whatever courses you have. And who does EverydaySpy? What are those courses? Who are they for?
So the courses really break down into two different types of people. There's the people who are trying to find their next level up. Maybe they work 9 to 5. Maybe they've always worked for somebody else. Maybe they're just trying to kick off a startup, right?
Okay.
But they're just trying to get started and they know that there are psychological and mindset tools to help them.
Sure. Okay.
That's the first everyday part of the brand.
Yeah.
But then our second biggest audience is the people who are already successful. They're running businesses that are $2 to $5 million or more per year. And what they're trying to do is scale using spy tactics, using persuasion at mass, using influence that's automated, using systems and processes that are based in human psyche that cross international borders.
Perfect.
So those are the two primary audiences that we work for.
Okay, everybody go to everyday.spy.
EverydaySpy.com.
EverydaySpy.com. Make sure you check it out, get his courses, because look, everybody watching this, listening to us, you're committed to mastery. You're not a winger, you're not a dabbler, you're not a know-it-aller, you're a student for life, you're committed to mastery. And who better to learn from? People who've already mastered this thing called sales and persuasion. So make sure you go check it out.